Good afternoon, good morning. I don't know where you're joining from, but we're certainly glad you're here. I'm glad you're here for navigating challenges, and boy, are there a lot of them, right? Um, I'm Julie Myers. I have been with SmarterServices, who is primarily sponsoring this webinar for 18 years. I've been in higher ed about 25, so worked with thousands of institutions across the country, and looking forward to sharing some of the things that we've learned, hopefully that will be of value to you, but also we definitely want to have comments and some Q&A interaction, because I'm confident there are individuals on the call that can share some things with us that we don't know, that we can pass along to prospects and clients that we speak with. I'm joined by my colleague, Carol Mike at Moody. If you want to unmute, Carol, and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Spent my career in education, supporting educators in lots of different roles, and have been at SmarterServices for almost 8 years. So looking forward to showing you some unique things today and to really talking about all the challenges that students face these days.
Perfect. Oh, sorry. So while we're letting a few other folks hop in and get into the webinar, we'd love to hear from you. So we've created a poll. Let me go to launch that. This is actually what it's going to be about. Let me launch that, and I would love to have your input. Hopefully it'll work. I've never done the ranking poll before, so hopefully that'll work out. We're basically asking you to rank the biggest concerns that you believe your students have about proctoring. And again, these would be things that you've heard, that you've seen, and would love to see that. And so if you guys want to hop in there and start ranking those, that would be great as we give everybody a chance to. Carol, can you confirm, is it popping up, or any of the attendees, if you want to let me know?
Yes, it's here.
Perfect, perfect. My view is different from everyone else's. So if you guys would start ranking those, that would be great. Obviously, we're going to be addressing these. We're going to be talking about them, but would love to see kind of where they fall in everyone's personal experience at their institution. Lots of votes coming in. Some of you may be having a hard time ranking them. I know when we were coming up with I don't know if it's Birdie or Bird. Thank you for your question. Is column 1 the lowest concern rank? Again, this is on me, probably because I have never set up a ranking poll. So yes, let's go with the column 1 as the lowest concern rank. And let's see. We have column 1, there's only 3 columns. Okay, well, lesson learned. And so basically I'm asking you to rank them all, but it turns out you can only rank the top 3, and that's okay. We'll learn from that, but this gives us a good indication of what you and your institution have experienced, or maybe what you've heard from your colleagues at other institutions. Got some more Q&A coming in. I do want to bring up the Q&A. Yes, we have the Q&A. That's okay. Jeannie, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. If you did it opposite, that's okay. Yes, you know what? Anonymous attendee, maybe you can redo yours. See if you can go back in there if you didn't submit it, but y'all are learning with us. Again, never have done the ranking poll. So either way, I think regardless of the results, right, whether they're first or third, we will all agree that these are challenges, and we're going to talk about them. All right, so we're about 5 minutes out of the top of the hour. I'm going to end the poll, and I am going to share the results, even though it's not allowing me to share the results. Okay. Oh, here we go. There, shared the results. Okay. So this may be a little bit skewed, but again, it's just an idea, get everybody kind of going and thinking of what we're going to be talking about. I think we all agree, regardless of how we would rank them, that almost every one of these is a concern, a major concern for more than one student, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Financial burden is one of those. Some people might say, well, what does that mean? We're going to talk about the financial burden of proctoring and how that could be perceived by students. I do want to mention that we do have the Q&A enabled, And Carol and I are going to be watching that throughout the presentation. If there's a comment or a question that needs to be addressed immediately, we will do that in real time. But if you don't get those addressed, please be patient. We will handle those at the end. And if they are applicable to the group, of course, we'll share them with everyone. But if they are not, we will address it one-on-one with you. So we're happy to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing and look a little bit more at okay, yeah. So my apologies for the question, the way that worked out, but at least we understand and we had an opportunity to engage a little bit. So anyway, like I said, glad you are here. And obviously we struck a nerve, right? We had a lot of registrations. And so this is clearly something that many schools and administrators, faculty are dealing with. So we're going to take you on a journey today. And in that journey, we're going to try to make sure we cover all of our objectives that we listed in the description so that this is a good use of your time. We are going to explore those student concerns, provide you with some options or ideas of how to mitigate those. We're going to talk a little bit about how to effectively communicate with students and some of the challenges that surround that. Building trust and transparency. We're going to talk about accessibility and accommodations. And ultimately, we're going to introduce you, this just for the record, this is not a sales demo, but we all want to introduce you to a solution that we would, very, very briefly, that we would love for you to research if these are some of the concerns that you're dealing with. So what are those student concerns? Some of them I listed. I think a big one that Carol and I and at SmarterServices have seen, and that is unfamiliar, the unknown, right? When students don't know what to expect, whether they're just a new student at a school, a college, maybe they're used to use one proctoring technology, now they have to use a different one. It's the unknown, and that causes a lot of insecurity, right? Maybe they've had bad experiences. Is my privacy going to be exposed? We know in the last couple of years or few years what all has come from the privacy issues. We want to be very sensitive to those, and also asking ourselves, how can we fix that? How can we make it go away? How can we stop it? I don't know that we can. So, but there are some things we can do proactively. There's stress and anxiety. And I'll be honest, I have several children, 3 that have come through college and that are out. I still have 2 in college and 3 more to go through college. So each of them that have come through have very unique experiences. Some of them have been in college during COVID. And so I was not even aware of some of the test anxiety, some of the stress that surrounded proctoring, whether it be face-to-face, online, remote, because it simply had not been a part of my world until several years ago when COVID hit. And it hit personally, right? And I know Carol can speak to this too, because she has college students as well. And so it changes your perspective. And then again, regardless of your title that you're joining the call, I'm sure you've encountered students that you've learned some things that, wow, I never thought of that. Who even knew housing insecurities was a thing? I guess I'm exposing myself. I did not know. Never occurred to me that people wouldn't want to have a webcam in their personal space if they're living with friends or family. Maybe they don't have, maybe they're housing insecurities. They don't have a permanent place they call home. And so many, I don't know what the word is, but just like light bulbs, right? I really learned a lot. So I'm confident that many of you have possibly learned some things about your students that you didn't necessarily know how that existed. And now we have to figure out, how do we address those? How do we build trust? How do we help students overcome and have confidence when they've had previous bad experiences? So let's talk about that. What are the GPS coordinates that will reroute privacy concerns, detour cost worries, guide students through accommodations, and remove technology roadblocks? And yes, I'm gonna need a hand clap. We're trying to get all the directional words, try to bring the theme together. But seriously, this is what we're here. We're gonna give you some GPS coordinates that we believe will be able to do all of these things. So stay tuned, we have the answer. Privacy concerns. Room scans. This is something that just probably 18 months to 2 years ago, every proctoring technology platform that we were aware of, not only our tool, but other competitors in the market, required room scans. That was part of the remote proctoring. What we learned through COVID was that some schools are not comfortable with doing room scans, but the majority of the technologies on the market, again, just a couple of short years ago, required that. We didn't offer a disabling of that feature. We now do, because we recognize that schools need to have that choice and they need to be able to remove that barrier. The constant monitoring. If I've got somebody watching me in a webcam, that for taking a test, it doesn't bother me. But imagine if I'm going on a cruise or on a vacation and there's a security camera that's constantly monitoring me that I don't know about. That really kind of gave me the creeps. That weirded me out. And so I started to think how that relates to maybe what some of the students are feeling. Not only someone watching them, but while they're trying to take an exam that's very important to them. Perhaps they've prepared and studied and it makes them very nervous. That's a very real thing, test anxiety. Housing insecurities, I mentioned that, those privacy concerns. And then ultimately, who wants to give a stranger, a person they've never seen, met, talked to, have any idea who they are, to peer into their private space? Maybe that's your bedroom, maybe that's your home. Regardless, that can be intimidating, not for everyone. And we recognize we have to, protect academic integrity, but that's a real concern. So how do we reroute those? Well, one of the ways is maybe at your institution, you don't choose to require room scans. Again, that's your option, but you need to have that option. So our technology allows you that option to disable those. You can offer testing center scheduling, and I'm sure many of you, I would love to see a show of hands. I don't know if the hand raise icon is available, but I would love to see a show of hands if you at your institution allow students have an on-site testing center that students can choose to go to. I see hands raising. Okay, great. Yeah. I would say it was probably pretty common among our clients anyway, among community colleges. And what I will say that just recently in the past, I don't know, year, I've been speaking with a very large, well-known university. And if I said the name, everyone on this call, regardless of where you're from, you would know. They did not have an on-site testing center on campus. I was shocked. So thank you for your feedback and input. It looks like a lot of you are raising your hands that you do have that. That's an alternative, right? That means the student not going to have somebody peering through their webcam and don't have to worry about their environment. Also, you can provide approved proctors at public locations. If they can't test in their home, maybe they can test it at a library in an area where there's been approved proctors. Also, perhaps using instructors or familiar faces. We have some schools that have their own testing center proctors, and they're not proctoring using Zoom or Teams, since we know that is certainly not FERPA compliant and not sustainable or scalable, but using our technology and our hybrid to then be able to fulfill that requirement while doing so in a very secure environment. So what about cost worries? So not all schools have the remote proctoring fees included, right? Yours might, that's great. We have a lot of schools who are still paying or footing the bill for the proctoring services for students, but some schools have had to pass that on to the students. So they have to notify them, let them know what to expect. But students may not have budgeted that for $5 a session or $25 a session or whatever the case might be. That's going to cause some anxiety and some difficulty. Students may not have the required hardware. So it's not just about paying for the proctoring session. What about the fact that I only have a Chromebook and my school uses a remote proctoring vendor that is not compatible with Chromebooks? And we all know Chromebooks are the least expensive, right, and the most accessible device that usually works with proctoring. So that's certainly something to think about. Maybe they are going to have to purchase a webcam. Again, all of these things, we need to be extremely sensitive to that. So how do we detour against those cost worries? One of the things we do is offer that local testing center scheduling, right? And I say offer the testing center scheduling, and I want you to think about inside your proctoring technology, inside one location. Not that they have to fill out a proctor form or come on site and do some type of scheduling, but imagine if students could also address, I need to come on site at the testing center in the same platform that perhaps they were scheduling that live remote because they were fine. One student was okay with that. The other student needed a different modality. choosing multiple proctoring modalities at different price points, right? So some schools use automated. We have record and review, which again, both of those are based on AI. There's little human intervention. And then we have the online remote where someone is watching them on camera, all the way into the student walking into the testing center. So those are all generally different price points, from free to low to maybe a higher cost, but that gives the student options. So my question to you is, at your institution, do students have those options? Perhaps you are able to provide the required hardware, lend out, or have some type of program with Chromebooks, webcams, etc. And are you able to use the vouchers with financial aid at the bookstore? So if a student has financial aid, and again, I worked at a university 7 years prior to this organization, and I know full well if students have that financial aid, if they were able to allot some of that, right, for vouchers for their sessions that they're required to pay for, that would be convenience. And so I'm curious if your provider for your proctoring modalities provides that option. Accommodations and accessibility stress. I included those in the same thing. I recognize there's a very clear difference between ADA accessibility, screen readers, people who have to have assistance, and as opposed to accommodations where perhaps, and again, I've just recently come into this, my youngest of the 8, she is 9, and she is about to get an IEP. So she's going to be able to have certain accommodations that include testing outside of her classroom. And so while it sounds rudimentary, but to me, this is the first interaction I've had with that. So I'm thinking, wow, this is very, very real for this student. And so I jetted on up to the college students and think about the accommodations that they might need. Again, some of these, accessibility and accommodations are slightly different, but a lot of students don't know what the difference is. Perhaps students have come to college and have never had advocates, have never been tested, have struggled, and don't have the knowledge of where they go. There could be some embarrassment, maybe some shame around that, especially if it's not been talked about, right? They may wonder, what do I need? What's wrong with me? Why is this not working? Why is this difficult? They don't know who to go to or where to find that information. They may be unsure if they qualify or not. And again, they have no previous experience. So what do? We're going to guide those students. We want to provide, we being a particular platform, organized, documented communications. If you have students communicating with faculty with students, and the ADA staff to determine what are the criteria. Does the student have, what paperwork do they need? So those documented communications don't need to just be via email. What if you had all those stored in one place so those could be referred to in relation to what they need regarding proctoring? That would be much more helpful than trying to route emails and attach them to a document to try to create a timeline. So think about if that was all in one location. I think it's so critical to provide instructions on who, when, and how in multiple locations. We have to meet the students where they are. So in the LMS, in the syllabus, in the testing center, in admissions, in student success, all of those places, we need to remind students or revisit, this is how you get access to this information. Because as we know, when students are unfamiliar with something, if they're afraid to ask questions, the more places they see information, the more likely they are to believe that it's acceptable and common, and hopefully reach out and get what they need. Another one is be flexible. So this is something that I believe schools, many institutions have tried to do by offering different proctoring technologies. Unfortunately, that has created some chaos. So if you have, and when I use the word provider, it's kind of can be interchanged with vendor. I hate that word. We like the word provider or partner because we really do try to partner with our schools to meet their needs. But a provider that gives you and the students a one-stop location to have access to all of these things, as opposed to this vendor provides this type of proctoring. this vendor provides this type of proctoring. And then you can still go to the testing center and know if you need a proctor and has to be approved by your instructor, we're going to get you to fill out a proctor form that, again, usually has to be sent through the instructor and perhaps the testing center. So now, in an effort for schools to make it more, give students more choices and faculty, in some cases, you've accumulated 2, 3, or 4 vendors and options. So now we have 4 different contracts, we have 4 different support departments. And so again, I think it was a good intention, but now many schools are in sort of a jam of students not knowing who to go to for what. Also, speak openly about this. Accommodations are and accessibility. I'm so thankful. If COVID's done many good things, and one of those is open the dialogue and cause people to be open and honest about what they need, and it's becoming more normalized, right? So it's not a secret and it's not a small population. So I would encourage you to speak openly about it. That's how we're going to guide the students. Technology and support concerns. I lumped this together because I recognize that, yeah, there's some logistics, bandwidth. What is the bandwidth? What does that word even mean? Carol and I, we know what our company requires and the download and the install, et cetera. But many students don't really know. Does that mean like I have to have 1 gig or 2 RGs or 3 MBs? They don't know in many cases, and that's okay. It's not their job necessarily to understand, but the problem is the unknown, right? What is the bandwidth needing for proctoring sessions? What if I don't have access to reliable internet? And we've seen that, right? For sure. What is the required hardware? Is it a laptop, a Chromebook? Can I use a tablet? Can I use my phone? What is going to be required? And then installations, again, software, the confusion, the unknown. So those are concerns. So how do we remove those roadblocks? Again, this cannot be stated enough. Clear instructions of required devices in multiple locations. We don't just put it in the syllabus. We don't just put it in when they register for online courses. Are you aware that you need these 3 devices? I encourage you to employ other departments at your institution. I've worked at university, so I know how things can get really siloed. But some of the most successful stories I've seen is when each department is on board and they are mentioning, even briefly, hey, did you check out the proctoring technology? Did you check out what's required in the online courses? Do you know anything about accommodations? I don't care if it's the business office when you're paying your bill, if it's in admissions when you're getting, enrolled, or student services, wherever, even in the SGA, wherever that is, let's combine that language and put it across several different departments and touch points. So the student recognizes it's not a big deal. Everybody's talking about it. So really open that up. We need to include all info about alternatives. And again, technology-wise, if you don't have a Chromebook and you don't have a laptop or a MacBook, all you have is a phone. Our technology, you can't take tests on that. So let's talk about it. What are the options? Well, let's look at what the local library has. Let's post what their daytime hours are and what their computer codes are, or how you get access to that. Let's post our testing center. Here's some ways that you can come and maybe rent a computer out or use one for a short time. So let's include that, again, in multiple areas, lots of information. We need to use video tutorials of what to expect for students. We understand that, listen, we got to meet them where they are, right? And we need that in several different modalities. Ask your provider, your proctoring provider, give me student resources. It should be a collaborative effort of you and your provider to create those resources to help your students. And if they're not doing that, then push them to do that. I would say use a provider that is compatible with Chromebooks, because that is going to be something you're going to see the most widely used. And then ultimately minimize confusion or support by choosing one single provider that is able to meet all of these needs, because that then allows the students, faculty, and admins to get to one person, one support department, without being confused of who to ask for what. So what are some of the communication challenges? So I want to see a raise of hands. Who can give me an amen? Students don't read. So if you can raise your hand, like students don't read, yes, the hands are like flying up. Carol and I we deal with this all the time. We hear it, students don't read. And so that's a reality. Students don't follow directions. If they do read, they're skimming through. Thank you so much for your input and feedback, guys. I really appreciate it. They're bored with predictability. Why? Because the world they live in is not predictable. They are able to get instant gratification. If they get tired of Instagram, they're going to go to Snapchat. If they get tired with Snapchat, they're going to go to TikTok. They have a world of choices immediately at their fingertips. So let's get a little creative as educators. We don't have to go completely rogue, but let's step a little bit out of our comfort zone and think how our students think. They're looking for a challenge. They want to see what's different. And I genuinely think students want to do well in exams in school. I mean, most all students would say, yes, I want to do well. They may not always prepare, but they want to do well. So how do we get them in the right direction? Clear verbiage and expectations. We want to challenge and incentivize students. I saw a great video recently, and it's like, if you read your syllabus, please read your syllabus. And then halfway through, he says, email me your favorite candy. And so the students who read the syllabus, they were awarded with a big bag of candy. I think there was like 7 out of 30 or whatever, 7 out of 50. And so, be kind of creative with that. Don't be afraid of that. Multiple locations and media form. Yes, syllabus announcements, video, social media. I have to say, in this area, more is more to me. Not less is more. The more places you put information in different formats where students live, they're going to be able to absorb it and it's going to stick. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you need some ideas, like let's have a brainstorming session, right? Let's have a webinar about talking about the different things we've done to be creative and what's worked. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be scared, because that's how we're going to get a movement. Involve the SGAs or campus groups. Let's promote it. Let's make it fun. Let's get buy-in and participation, again, from other departments. How do we get buy-in from admissions regarding proctoring? Testing centers. That sounds so siloed. It really isn't, my friend. Everybody wants the best for these students. So what can we do from beginning to middle to end to improve retention, to improve the student experience, and have these students feeling more confident because they have choices with proctoring, because they know that they're not forced into one area or another. They know they have support with cost. They have options. So I really would encourage you to do that. So I promised you the GPS coordinates, and Carol's about to take it away on that. I want you to think about, and again, we're going to share the deck, share the recording, absolutely. I want you to think about these endpoints to consider on your expedition to address student concerns with proctoring. So again, every time you write a direction, an instruction, do a video, encourage students, give them what they're supposed to do, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Is this language, is this medium connecting with the students? Is this clear? Have a colleague read it. Better yet, have one of your friends that's not even involved in education. Hey, read these 3 sentences or this paragraph. Does this help you indicate, is it clear of what the student is supposed to do, their expectation of them? What are the instructions? Consistent. The reason consistency is important is because if you have a student that is taking 4 courses, minimum 12 hours in a semester, and they go into each one of those and they have 4 different instructors, 4 different expectations, and then 3 or 4 different proctoring technologies, then that is not consistent. So what can your organization or institution do to ensure that every student, when they go to proctor in a proctor environment under any circumstances, test center, automated, live remote, find their own proctor, it will always be a consistent experience because it's the same singular platform. A choice. We've got to give students choices, and not only students, but faculty. Faculty deserve choices too. We need to promote confidence. Is what I'm doing helping students have more confidence because they've done this more than once. They know what to expect every time. Can you customize what you're providing for the student? Or do you have to jump from 3 different vendors and technologies in order to make it custom? How do we conserve our resources? How do we conserve our administrative resources so we're not getting 3 different reports from 3 different vendors about how many sessions we used? Why don't we conserve our resources and look at one report so it shows all different proctoring types at our organization or institution under one single vendor? And ultimately, maximize that cost value, get the best volume pricing. So reduce the number of lost students and adrift faculty by giving them the GPS coordinates to 1, safe, familiar, again, consistent, reliable, flexible, customizable location to conduct all proctoring activities. Thank you for your attention, Carol. I'm going to stop sharing and let you take it away so you can introduce Smarter Proctoring. While you're pulling that up too, don't forget the Q&A is available. Guys, pop in questions along the way. We'll handle them at the end, but I'm happy to address them. So I'd love to see any comments, questions that you have. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Again, Julie has definitely informed you about what's to come. So what we want to talk about with Smarter Proctoring is really, we're really different in how we can help students, again, go to a familiar place to follow a consistent workflow. Even if you want to provide choices to them, it makes it easier for instructors and makes it easier for students. You'll see here a myriad of options, but I don't want this slide to scare anybody because your institution picks what you want to deliver to students. And so once your institution decides what your methods are, then Smarter Proctoring helps you present that to your students. And I'll talk in detail about these options that we offer. So one of the options that we're proud to have is 24/7, 365 live proctoring. If you know anything about proctoring, you know this can be a really high deterrent level when a student has a proctor with eyes on them. But one of the things that we like about live too is it's really can be a supportive proctoring environment because the student can chat with a proctor or chat with support if there are issues during the session. So not only does live offer high deterrent, but you've also got that ability for the student and the proctor to interact if there's a question. Also the ability for the student to live chat our support team during these sessions. And we do have some tools to help our proctors be more efficient because with our proctoring solution, our live proctors are assisted by AI to help them determine what students they should really focus on during a session. We've gotten great feedback on our live proctoring and really think it compares very highly with other providers that offer that same service. Another option in Smarter Proctoring that you can choose to deliver for your students is AI proctoring with two different levels of service. We offer automated and record and review. Students are big fans of this modality because scheduling is not required, right? Students can jump in and test on demand anytime during the exam window that they want to test. So it's very student friendly in that manner. Julie's mentioned also that we're Chromebook friendly at Smarter Proctoring. So that's another reason that students, are comfortable with this level of proctoring and how to approach it. But we really find that the longer we offer this modality, the more popular record and review becomes. Because with record and review, the student experience is the same as automated, right? They jump in and test whenever they want to during that exam window. Smarter Proctoring also uses a Chrome extension, which is very quick and easy for the students to download and access and begin testing. But with record and review, an instructor is really only having to view incidents that a trained professional proctor has deemed need to be seen by that instructor. So anything that we call as a false positive or something that AI might alert during a session that is not anything that the instructor needs to review, that flag would be removed from the recording, and instructors are really saving a lot of time by looking at just incidents that a professional proctor has deemed that they need to review. And so again, these two methods can be affordable and also popular with students due to their ability to test on demand. As Julie has mentioned previously, Smarter Proctoring is unique in that we also allow students to access appointments at their testing center through our system. Many times, many of you in your programs may currently say that a student can test at a testing center, but many times they have to fill out a separate form or, get a face-to-face proctor approved. And there can be some additional hoops that they have to jump through if they don't want to be remotely proctored. Well, with our tool, we're giving you access to testing centers. And let's say, as Julie mentioned, and I think of probably about a third of you raised your hands when we talked about on-campus testing as an option for your students. So it may be that your on-campus testing center is there, but maybe it only focuses on those types of tests that are needed for admission to your institution as AccuPlacer or those types of placement exams, or maybe you do a lot of Pearson VUE and those types of things. Maybe there's not room and staff at your testing center to test your distance learning students. Well, not only with Smarter Proctoring can you access an individual testing center on campus, but we also have a network of centers that students are able to look at their availability and see what their fees are and even make an appointment with those centers. Those of you that do have on-campus centers, we also have an affiliation and a partnership with Register Blast, and that is one of the most popular test center scheduling tool. And you can dynamically find an appointment very quick and easy with a Register Blast testing center, and I'll show that to you in just a second. And also this secure way to get your exam information over to your testing center. SmarterProctoring allows instructors to input exams and put those exam details in, the link and the password, and even any attachments that are needed. And that information is automatically transferred over to testing centers. So it can be a very secure way to get information over to testing centers. And again, students aren't needing to learn a new workflow. And also, if your testing center would like to get involved in remote proctoring, we also have an option too for our hybrid tool that I'll talk about in a minute that would allow your institution to remotely proctor students. Again, the network that I mentioned, we have a network of testing centers that test students from other institutions. And we also have a network of face-to-face proctors at libraries or notaries or those types of other face-to-face proctors. And this network grows every day. People are contacting us wanting to join our network to be able to test students. So again, it's a real advantage, especially if you don't have a local testing center. And of course, with you being in an online program, chances are you have students that are hundreds of miles away from your institution who might want to access these services at another institution. Hybrid virtual proctoring has proven to be very popular, and this was created by us at the request of our institutions. When COVID shut all the face-to-face testing centers down pretty much overnight, a lot of our institutions had trained proctors who needed to be involved in proctoring exams, but anybody that's used Zooms or Teams know that those are not exactly designed appropriately for remote proctoring. Hybrid virtual proctoring, it really allows you to use the same software that we use internally with our live proctoring software. It allows you to monitor up to 10 students at a time with your proctors. We have a way for your students to see your availability and to schedule. We have AI running in the background to assist your proctors to know which students to focus on. And the cost is very low because it's basically the same cost as automated proctoring because your institution is supplying the manpower, which is normally involved in live proctoring costs. As we talk about all these options in Smarter Proctoring, just know it's not scary. After I do this slide, I'm going to go in and show you what it looks like for a student to really see their options in Smarter Proctoring. But I can't do a presentation about proctoring in 2024 and not address ChatGPT, right? How do we counteract ChatGPT in Smarter Proctoring? We have a consistent onboarding process in all our remote options. And of course, we can do the room scan if you want a room scan. We can do an ID check if you want an ID check. And one of the things that that Smarter Proctoring does before a student accesses an exam is shuts down all extensions other than our own extension. So no matter what the remote workflow is, whether it's live, automated, record and review, and hybrid, what our system is going to do is shut down any extension that's running. And so ChatGPT would be shut down by our Smarter Proctoring extension. I'm going to stop right here and go back out and show you, let's be real world, and let's be a student, and let's try to figure out what our options are for this test. In Julie's part of the presentation, she talked a lot about think like a student thinks. So let's be a student and let's go into Smarter Proctoring, and this is going to be showing you Smarter Proctoring in Canvas, but we work in D2L. We work in Blackboard, all the major LMSs, but let's be a student and let's try to figure out how we want to take our exam this week. So I've gotten a notification in Canvas and I'm in my Smarter Proctoring, which we're a tool in Canvas. And so I've gotten a notification that I've got a final coming up, and let's decide how we want to take that exam. So I just click choose a proctor and I'll be able to see the choices that my institution has provided for me to take this exam. Well, it looks like my institution has given me 3 choices. I can look to see what's available at a testing center. I can even see if there are any face-to-face proctors in my area who would test me. And then if I want to go ahead and take the exam, I can launch into automated proctoring and onboarding. So when a student enters Smarter Proctoring, they enter a zip code. And so Smarter Proctoring pulls resources that are close to that student. So let's say that I've got to take my final on Friday, and it's Tuesday. and my laptop had a cup of coffee spilled on it, and I'm panicking, right? I need to take this exam on Friday, but I don't have hardware this week. So what are my options? Again, I could even do the scheduling a piece on an iPad. You can use a regular browser to do scheduling with us. You just can't take an exam on a mobile device. So let's say I grabbed, I grabbed a device from a friend, and let's see what my options are for taking that exam. So I can click choose a proctor. And the address I put in was Auburn, Alabama, because that's where my son is currently, his senior year. And oh, look, here are my options for Auburn, Alabama. I can request a session at this testing center, and it's $25. And let's go in and see what appointments are available. When you see that yellow and green icon, that means the Register Blast tool is used by this institution. So I can go in and hit continue and look and see what dates and times are available. And then I could click complete registration and my appointment would be made. So it's really that easy. And again, I can go in and choose these options easily with SmarterProctoring. So I can decide how I want to take my exam because I can evaluate my options. And I see here, this is not my only option for face-to-face. But again, I'm not required to use this option. If I wanted to use automated proctoring, which was that bottom button, I could simply go back and choose another option in the system. So I can basically shop my options and determine what works best for me that particular week. So I'm going to stop there and I'll go back to my presentation. So as we talk about other institutions that have used our tool, and let me go back to slideshow. Just wanted to give you some perspective. Davidson Davie is a community college in North Carolina, and Davidson Davie is using our hybrid model where institutional proctors are allowing students to make appointments and schedule with them. And one of the things that Davidson Davie students are enjoying is that sense of security from faculty, but the students being able to realize that someone from their institution has a vested interest in their student success. As mentioned here, students knowing that that contact is from their institution and knowing when that they're connecting with that proctor, it's someone that they're affiliated with that has a vested interest in their success. Also, too, we work with Ivy Tech, which is a very large community college system in Indiana. And with Ivy Tech, we do a lot of things. One of the things is students see that whole network of Ivy Tech testing centers. Also, too, if an Ivy Tech proctor is not available, either through hybrid or face-to-face, we can then offer our own proctors to fill in the gaps. So it's really a robust proctoring platform, the way Ivy Tech is using SmarterProctoring. So if any of you are in a consortium or community college system, we work with several of those consortiums to really manage proctoring on a large basis. So basically, we can allow students to see all the options in their network. So it can be a really robust way to offer students institutional options as well as our remote proctors. And I do have an issue here with students with accommodations. This is a Q&A question. With students with accommodations also have to pay for proctoring. Some students have an extended time, separate accommodations, which requires them to take an exam elsewhere, where other students might take it in class with the instructor. The neat thing about SmarterProctoring is you can decide if you want it to be institution pay or student pay. So there can be ways that we can give you vouchers that you could use for a student that has an accommodation. So let's say the screen reader at your testing center is not working and you needed to send that student to another institution. We could help you by changing the option for how that session is accrued so that your institution pays versus that student, or we could possibly work with you on a voucher situation. So yes, that in the example that I showed with the $25 testing center does not mean that local testing at your institution would more than likely be free for that student. But if you needed another institution, there would be a way that you could pay the fee. Okay. Just some institutions here that use SmarterProctoring in lots of different ways. We're really a custom solution. So you can really craft the solution that you want to present to your students and allow them to see their options and easily schedule and take exams with our tool. We wanted to give you some resources for the presentation. So in addition, at the bottom, you'll see some resources for academic integrity. organizations and some different resources that we have here. We're all familiar, I'm sure, with WCET. Just a couple I want to put a plug in for. The Teaching Online podcast that's done out of the University of Central Florida is one of my favorites. I linked to one of their specific episodes on academic integrity. And also, if you know anything about the Teaching Online Top Kit, that's also a resource from some of the Florida institutions. There's a great video there that I've linked, an episode there of their podcast, and it's actually a YouTube video that discusses academic integrity. And I don't know if I referenced it, but on my earlier slide about ChatGPT, this quote came from that particular recording. It said, ChatGPT is a lot like a calculator, but a calculator is always right. So as we go into this brave new frontier, just know that there's going to be lots of bumps along the way when it comes to how AI affects proctoring. But just know that us here at Smarter Services, we're here for the ride. Yes, we will be sharing the presentation, and I'll also let Julie close us out.
I clicked the unmute button several times. If y'all hear some kind of bad, just for some reason, the sidewalk buster upper decided to show up today. So there's a little bit of background noise. But so yeah, thanks, Carol. I know we still have a lot of people on the call, and although yes, this is us giving you information, we've got some time. So I would love it if you guys could like unmute, like ask a question or share maybe some of the things that you've encountered. We don't have to just be like, regurgitating information. I know that we've had the question. Yes, absolutely. The presentation, like Carol said, will be shared. The deck as well as the recording. Will the links be available to click on? Absolutely, Carol. Smith Cuevas, if I said that correctly. And yes, we're going to be sharing additional resources in our follow-up email. I do request that you would please watch for the webinar survey. We are trying to figure out how to navigate, the most important topics to our readership while introducing our product, but really also addressing some of the things that are very relevant to what you guys do every day. Nice. Okay. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate that on the input, the Q&A. So any questions, maybe perhaps something you hoped we'd cover that we did not, something that you would like clarification on. I can't, express strongly enough to please give us feedback on the webinar. You can do it anonymously, right or wrong, good or bad. We want to make these better because we really do value at Smarter Services provide content for our readership and not out in the and not just information about our product. So it sounds like someone is unmuted. Do you have a question?
That was likely just me.
Okay. All right, gotcha. So we'll send the follow-up. There'll be the recording, the deck, and the resources. Any questions? I want to give everybody a few minutes.
Yeah, I can address that question. The reason we say Zoom may not be the best platform for proctoring are a couple of reasons. Number one, if you recall anything about the Cleveland State lawsuit, when you proctor with Zoom, students don't have to consent to being recorded the way that they're recorded and monitored for a proctoring session, right? You just click on the, I know this is being recorded, but again, most of your proctoring tools need additional legal consents to protect you. That's one of the things that our tool has in it. Also, too, you can securely store recordings that are done with SmarterProctoring because they are going to go directly inside a student dashboard. So you don't have a spare recording sitting around on somebody's hard drive or even in the Zoom cloud. Our recordings are stored inside SmarterProctoring so that others at the institution can't get access to them. Also, too, we have AI built into our hybrid proctoring tool, which Zoom doesn't, that can help a proctor efficiently monitor more than one student because the AI is helping them to know who to focus on. And then also with our tool, a proctor has an additional level of support. If your proctor is just using Zoom, they're their own technical support. When you're using hybrid proctoring, you've got that additional layer of support. You have the proctor, but then you also have our support team who can be chatted in to help you with any student technical concerns. So I hope that answered your question.
That's great, Carol. And you covered pretty much everything. The only other thing I can consider or mention is that if you are needing to proctor more than one student at a time or want to do that, Zoom is not scalable, right? So if you would be more productive proctoring 1, 2, 3, 5 students at a time, you simply could not do that in a secure FERPA compliant way because everybody can see everybody, as opposed to our hybrid technology would allow you to do that, and the students don't see each other. Each student has their own individual recording, and as Carol stated, it's all backed by the AI flagging. So that is why would be FERPA compliant.
And as Julie said, and the communications are siloed too. Like if a proctor chats one student, the other students don't see it. So any other questions? We'd happy to take them. We enjoy
Lots of great comments. Thank you for acknowledging us addressing the technology support concerns, which are very valid, right? Again, in efforts of schools to try to provide more than one option, which we now know is going to be critical for choices, faculty and students, that created a different challenge of having more than one vendor or, provider, and thus causing confusion for the student and the faculty. Was this an exam proctored here? Did I create an account here? Do I go there? One thing I know we mentioned, but perhaps we didn't drive home enough, and that is that all of our proctoring modalities are integrated with the LMS. So that creates that consistent, familiar environment. Students and faculty would go into the LMS to schedule any proctoring modality, whatever the school has enabled or the faculty member has enabled, right? And so whatever that might be, I think, Carol, you're pulling it up right now, but whatever that might be, that allows then students to have a consistent experience, whether they're doing automated because their English professor required this, and their math instructor maybe is requiring another modality, but having to go to 2 or 3 different vendors can be very confusing. So if they have a problem, who do they contact? And often it's probably going to land on the help desk of your institution. But Carol, you may want to point something out.
Yeah, and this is the same dashboard where instructors put in their exam details too. So instructors put their exam details into this dashboard, and then they go back and view student recordings from the same dashboard. So it's a really centralized, easy way for the instructors to manage all the different details related to proctoring. Also, it keeps emails out of their inboxes too. They're not going to get emails from the testing center with an incident report. If the student had an incident report, it's going to show up in a dashboard right there. So it's very easy to manage.
So I'm guessing we have a lot of faculty, maybe some administrators on the call, but think about, as an administrator, if you're having to navigate and manage and organize proctoring across your institution, how are you doing that? You're pulling reports from 1, 2, 3, 4 vendors and your testing center. So imagine what it would be like to go to one dashboard inside the LMS to determine and see how many sessions were for automated, record and review, which professors use what, where the accommodations are, all of the communications that are documented. So that is something that doesn't exist on the market right now except for us. And so I would love to, obviously we'll send you a follow-up email, and we would love to do a custom demo that only spotlighted the modalities that your institution has been using, maybe with other vendors, and kind of show you how we could bring that together. This really was just helping you understand, we know the challenges. Here are some suggestions. This is what we think will help, but also to let you know there is a solution that could remedy or mitigate almost all of these. I don't see any new questions coming in. Wow, we did great. We're not at the top of the hour. I want to give it just another minute. Any other questions or comments? We're happy to take. Oh, here's one. Okay. It's regarding cost. Okay, which we talked a little bit about that, right? So the thing about cost, again, one of the things I think we focused on is custom, flexible options, right? I want you to buy into that and think about, what does that mean for cost? And so from an institution standpoint, that could mean a plethora of things. In many RFPs, we do a, hey, this is how much an automated session is going to be per student, or record and review, or a live online for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, et cetera. But also some organizations want to have a flat rate per student, right? Whether it be based on FTE or a head count, the number of students who are actually going to access the service, use the platform for scheduling test centers, and maybe you only want to expose certain courses or certain programs to enable certain types of, some of the higher level proctoring remote. And so we work with institutions based on their needs. We absolutely have pricing, whether it be student pay or school pay, a flat rate, or, based on your modality. So don't let that scare you. When we say we are willing to work with schools, we want it to make it most advantageous for the school and the students. And we have a lot of different pricing models that we can use to work with your budget. And again, with CARES money, many of schools were able to pay for it for students, but now some are starting to transition and say, hey, what can we do to make this painless for students and the best cost, the best volume pricing, which again, that goes back to that single provider.
Yeah.
Looks like you're reading something. Go ahead.
Yeah. You guys will be getting a follow-up email from Julie that has resources in there. Anybody that wants to know more, feel free to reach out with a reply to that email, or to reach out to us separately. That very last slide, I think I stopped sharing, but the very last slide has our email addresses on it. It's pretty easy. I'm Carol at SmarterServices.com and Julie's Julie at SmarterServices.com. Basically, if it touches the Atlantic Ocean, it's a school that I work with. If it touches the Gulf of Mexico, it's Julie. And Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific and the Midwest is pretty much Julie. So, but anyway, just send us an email if you have any questions. We're just thrilled that you guys joined us today, and thank you for hanging with us for the hour. We definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, everybody. Bye.